Patrick Johnston is in studio. Look, he's come all the way from Burnaby to join us in studio. The Canucks have an alumni luncheon, and
I do my thing. Troll.
it's great to see you.
Around.
It's great to see you here in the Nation Network studio. How you doing?
Very pleased to be here.
Welcome to our humble
But I'm
abode.
not used to sitting over here. When I come in for Rink Wide, I sit in your chair, man. Hope that's okay.
Oh,
No, that's totally
Sits
fine.
in
That's totally fine.
Goldilocks.
So, yeah.
how do you like the medium-sized bed?
Little known fact here: we have these two beautiful ergonomic chairs, and I sit in the little chair. I like the old school.
It's because it kicks
chair.
back. It feels like my chair in
Exactly.
my office at home.
Okay, what do you know about Hronek?
Not much beyond what Irf has said.
How devastating an injury would this be for them?
It'd be massively devastating. I mean, it's your number 2 defenseman. Look, Philip Hronek is not perfect, but I feel has been a pretty good choice as Quinn Hughes' partner. And he moves the puck. He knows what he's doing. He can do lots of things. I of course, would like him to shoot less into the opposition's shin pads, but that's a quibble.
He's got Edler disease there a little bit.
But no, it's a massive loss.
Who do you suspect plays with Quinn Hughes if he's unavailable? And we do. I mean, it's a quick turnaround here. They're playing in 24 hours. So.
I mean, I
Buffalo.
guess, is it a Tyler Myers assignment? I don't know. They don't have a lot of options. You know, you're obviously going to be calling up probably Mark Friedman or maybe Cole McWard, I guess. And we'll see where Hronek's at. He's on the trip. Was he coach's decision not playing the last couple of games, or he's still dealing with whatever he was dealing with?
Apparently was available. So
Well,
I
the
mean,
key
he'll
thing
dress.
is Weil is doing a lot of lifting here in the statement from Irf.
Yeah.
What does Weil mean? Does Weil mean 2 weeks? Does Weil
Yeah.
mean 6 weeks? Like
Yeah.
he went on to follow up. Irf did say it's a non-surgical injury. It looks like.
I don't
Still,
know what that is.
yeah.
You know, like the way he falls in the back of his shoulder, the immediate pain. You know, did he knock it out and needs to pop back in? But like staying out for a while is not a week to me. It's
No.
6 weeks. You know, I don't
That's
know.
what pops into your mind. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's sort of in the eye of the beholder at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I know Myers hasn't looked great there in the past. I
No.
know, although it was some time ago, it must be said when
Yeah.
Myers had any kind of, even reasonable run with Quinn Hughes as a pair, and Hughes is a much different player now too. And look, it's a lot of bad choices,
Yeah.
but the theory of Hughes and Hronek is that you want a guy who's not a total zero offensively and a total
Right.
zero with the puck
Yeah.
with Quinn Hughes. That
Yeah.
you don't get the best out of Hughes unless you partner him with somebody who's got a little bit of puck skills, a little bit of mobility, right, and isn't just that granite block defensive defenseman.
Yeah.
And so for me, that's Myers, right? Like that's got to be unless you want to go uber small with an Eric Brandstrom playing the offside, I think it's got to be Myers.
We've seen that
in
for
the
a
near
couple
term.
shifts anyway. I mean, that was the other option. But I think realistically, if you want to keep left, right, and that's generally what they want to do, I don't think things are so desperate that you want Brandstrom there. I mean, who are you calling up on the left? You're calling up what, DPD? I mean, it's in this scenario, I think you're probably going to try to stay right, left, and that's where they'll go. And so Myers, because he's been there before, makes some sense. I mean, there was an idea somehow Hronek would fit in there. I mean, it's not great options. I think Noel Juleson, you keep him as 6 and you work your way in between.
I was going to say
number 1 and your number 6, and you work your way between those two.
I was going to say this happened on the weakest side of the two. I don't know that there is a weakest side of the two anymore. Like honestly, in the bottom 4, I don't know that there's much to separate any of the sides.
No, the bottom 4 are realistically both third pairings. You know, if Susie were playing better, you could argue that he's at least a second pairing defenseman, but he hasn't played like one this season.
No,
and that's why there has been, going on a search for a second pairing defenseman, which they've been doing for a while. When they were winning, it was easier for them not to have to think about it, and they were in. I'm not saying they're in a rush because of the situation. They knew they needed a defenseman, but they also wanted to make sure that the market didn't, overwhelm them. And so now they're in a situation where I mean, listen, it is literally American Thanksgiving, right? We know the playoff meanings of where they're at right now. They're in the mix, but they're not comfortable. And so how much increased urgency do they now have to add a defenseman is where I'm at. And the options are not. I mean, obviously we saw Marcus Pettersson last night, but there in theory going to be more options the longer you wait. But how much longer can they really wait now?
Well, and in theory, Pettersson would be a nice add on the left side, but I think now you've got to address the right side.
Yeah. I mean, realistically, if you can find a right shot partner for Carson Soucy, who that brings, in the long run brings up your second pair. That's what you're looking for.
Right.
So, but a guy that's
when Hronek comes back.
Yeah, that's what I mean. But when you find a guy that's competent enough to, or you can play a guy that's good enough to play with Hughes, and then you put Hronek with Soucy. You know what I mean?
Patrick, there's a school of thought they've waited too long already, right? Yeah. Because now you're dealing out of a position of weakness. Yes. Everybody knows you're missing your top right side guy, and that you think that could be devastating, like linchpin type stuff.
But when you leap right now, guys, where's the salary coming from? The salary cap space.
Because, well, that's the challenge.
You got LTIR available maybe with Hronek. I guess we don't know the extent of the injury, but
that doesn't make it comfortable when they're all healthy, right? So
no, of course not. But that's why I understood what he was trying to do with salary cap accrual and all of that. But to me, there was always an inevitability of LTIR.
I mean, right now they have 2.5, right? Mm-hmm. Like you can make things work.
Okay.
But, at the deadline, Puck P has got the projected to have 2.5. But I mean, they can probably double that at least. Like they can manipulate stuff around. The longer they wait, the easier it was going to be to manipulate stuff around. But they're now in a position where they're going to have to make some hard choices.
Yeah, I mean, it was just such a long road to deadline season to think that LTIR was not going to be a very real possibility for you.
Mm-hmm.
Nils Höglander for David Savard in Montreal. Who says no?
Montreal.
Yeah. I mean, if that's the price, I guess. Yeah. I mean,
you're over a barrel here. Yeah. Now, your head coach doesn't look like his brand of hockey is ever going to mesh with Höglander. He's on a very good contract this year. He's on a halfway decent contract going forward. He still has value. Like I know we're doom and gloom sometimes with Canucks fans when a player goes through a tough spell. But Nils Höglander has bounced back in the past. Yeah. He scored 25 goals last year, all of them at even strength. Every team can fit him cap-wise now and going forward with this extension that kicks in next year. And quite frankly, his warts, his flaws may be less pronounced in a different coach's system. Frankly, I think he's worth more than rental David Savard. But if you're so desperate for a right side defenseman, where are you going right now? Juracek? Like, are you in the Juracek sweepstakes? But they want to pick in a prospect. Like, that's a little bit.
I mean, to me, I said this earlier this week. I think if you can get Juracek for a pick and a prospect, I think you do it. I mean, I have long been certain that Patrick Allvin is ready to trade his first round pick for next year. They recognize what this year means. The requirements of making a big trade probably means you're moving. I mean, if they play as well as they think they will be, that's a late first round pick anyway. It's obviously it's not nothing, but it's not like you're trading a top 5 pick. You're not trading Dylan Guenther or things like that.
But he's not demonstrably better than anybody. Like, we don't know how much better. Like, is he an upgrade anywhere, Dave?
Juracek
In the now.
Yeah, well, he had a massive season in the AHL at the age of 20. Like, that's not something to ignore. Like he has shown talent at every other level, and he's been playing for a not very good team for the most part. So I'm very high on him. I think he's the kind of player they should be looking to add. And I see people, I mentioned this the other day on Blue Sky, and people went, well, what about Wheeland? And they're like, okay, yeah, but like right now, that Juracek is closer even on where he's been to sort of Hughes Hronek than Wheelander is, because Wheelander most likely, because all prospects are bad, is most likely closer to the bottom end of your defense core, right? Like even when he makes it. Now, that may be wrong. That may prove to be not the case, that he may prove to be a top defenseman. But you have to play on what you know and where you're at right now. And if you're playing to win right now, to me, trading for David Jiricek is, in fact, a trade you do make. That's the kind of move you should make. And that's why I'm not that keen on trading for a guy like David Savard. David Savard is 34 years old. Like, his best days are behind him.
Does a first in DPD get that job done? Or are they going to ask for like a first in Wielander?
I mean, that's what I assume it would be first in Wielander, right? Like, DPD's fine.
Oh, you can't do that.
But
you can't do that. If you're giving up the first, it can't be a Wielander, Lekranacki style prospect. Jiricek, they have a market, but
the longer it goes, the easier it gets, right? Jiricek would have gone by now, right? If they'd gotten their price, he would have gone.
Saravelli thought it was like imminent a couple of days ago, and now the word from Chris Johnston, is your namesake, is that it's
good man.
A pick and a prospect gets it done. Now, one of those things is going to be heavy artillery. It's either going to be a very good prospect and a lesser pick, or it's going to be a first-round pick and a bit of a lesser.
And I think realistically, the
prospect.
Canucks is a first-round pick and somebody else. Like, that's what the Canucks offer.
Yeah, well, no, I'm with Blake. Like, if a first in DPD gets it done, and you believe that Jiricek is a top 4 right side defenseman, and the knock there would be the mobility, right? That some people just don't think he moves well enough, but 6'3", 210, like he's their kind of.
That's a Rick Talk shaped defenseman.
Yeah.
Artur Shilovs.
Yes.
Oh.
He doesn't make another start in 2024, does he?
No, I don't think he does. Listen, I've been around Rick Tocchet enough to know what his body language tells us, and the way he answered those questions last night told you everything. That he does it. He sees it. He is an empathetic coach. He cares about his players. He obviously has concern for the goalie, but the goalie is not performing. And there's just no way that they can put that guy in the net. Like, that's what I saw last night. I said, this is a guy that's just like, oh man, they are now hoping that Thatcher Demko is back, next week, which was always kind of the best case scenario plan, was that by the beginning of December. But no, you can talk all you want about environment. Yes, there were some scrambles, but you got to make a save. Like, this is the Kevin Lankinen. This is why I wrote this morning. Kevin Lankinen, team MVP. Imagine where they would be without Kevin Lankinen, right? This we're not even having any of these discussions. And Kevin Lankinen, he's had a couple rough starts, but think about all the moments he's come up big, right? And that is what teams need, right? Every team has breakdowns. No team is perfect. Teams get big saves from their goalies, and Artur Shilovs made the big saves last spring. He's not making any right now.
And it's been that way with every start where you go, okay, some of them aren't on him, but boy, he's got to make that one, or you need to save it. Even Shilovs was saying that in the aftermath.
Yeah.
Is he missing Ian Clark?
Probably. Yeah. Marco Trenius is a well-regarded coach.
He struggled under Terranius last year at the
I think Clarkie, but there are good coaches, but it's like, I don't know. The thing I always used to say is, like, in high school, everyone meshed with a certain math teacher, right? You just needed teachers who taught you in a certain way, spoke to you in a certain way, and I think I just think Ian Clark clearly spoke to Artur Shilovs in the way he needed to be spoken to.
Yeah, we haven't talked about it for a while, in part because Lankinen has been so good. But I do wonder whether this franchise will rue the day they made the move with Ian Clark that they made at the beginning of the year. I know he's not of Rutherford's design there.
Nope.
I know it was a unique accommodation for a goaltender coach that the Canucks made under Aquilini and Benning. So I can understand Rutherford coming in and being a little apprehensive about that, going, okay, this isn't what I'm accustomed to. And, of course, Jim's an old goaltender himself with a lot of old goalie ties. But I just think they might have been a little too short-sighted there. And I know Ian can be a bristly personality, but I just have a feeling that they are going to regret what they did with Ian Clark, because I think he's absolutely gone from this organization at the end of the year. And he's going to be difficult to replace. Like, it's just a set of eyes and a way of teaching that specific position that I thought was a competitive advantage.
We've seen this twice before, right? Think about when he left the first time. They got lucky with Rolly Melanson, right? Rolly the goalie worked out.
But Ian was a different coach back then as well, Patrick. Like, Ian was very much, and it's funny to say, like, the word might be a little too strong and too soft at the same time. I don't want to say he coddled Roberto, but I can vividly remember Rolly saying to me one day at the rink, okay, so he's bad playing the puck. Are we just going to fucking accept that? No, we're going to work at it. We're going to find a way to make him better at playing the puck behind his net. You remember all the adventures, right? Yeah. And to Rolly's credit, Lou got better playing the puck, but the revamping of the style under Rolly was the big thing.
Yeah.
And Ian at the time was more sort of a caddy, a shoulder to cry on, like that sort of coach, a lovable, huggy coach. Sure. He has since gone on and become, goaltending guru in the NHL, and that has allowed him to be a little tougher and no, we're doing it my way. And so it was to watch the evolution of a coach was one thing, but also to watch the evolution of his proteges was something else because he had nothing but success.
Yeah, and then Rolly came in, and then Rolly leaves, and they were kind of nowhere, right? Like Dan Cloutier was said to be a good coach, but Dan Cloutier wasn't the guy. And then there's a reason why they brought Ian Clark back. Because he, as you said, he become a better coach. He's gone away and become a better coach, and we've seen the results.
Get back.
It's 6 out of 7 goalies in Columbus that played in the NHL. I mean, he's got these, he's delivered here. He made Thatcher Demko better. He got Archer Shelovs into the NHL. I think you're absolutely right, Matt. They're going to miss him.
Canucks have got these 2 matinees coming up.
Yeah.
Which one does Thatcher Demko start?
Detroit.
Yeah, I was going to say Detroit. I have a hard time. They're off today. They're off today. They're flying to Buffalo. They play midday tomorrow. They play Detroit they'll have a practice on Saturday. Like he's not going to go into this without a morning skate, and they're not going to have a morning skate on Sunday, but they'll have a practice on Saturday. That's the only thing. Or they just go Lankinen, and then he plays in Minnesota, because Minnesota, at least you have a morning skate and you can get the full routine. Like that's the only thing that I think is sort of standing between him and starting, is that getting that full routine in there. Obviously, you haven't been there for practice, but you can just imagine where the progression's at. So to me, the only thing about if he's going to start matinee, it's in Detroit. I think Matt's right on that. But I think more likely it would be, if he's going to start on this trip, it'll be in Minnesota.
Well, I think he's
got the patience because he's lasted this long. I don't think he's going to rush it. But no. I do wonder what a result tomorrow, or lack of a result tomorrow, does to the urgency to all this.
Well, we talked about it yesterday, Blake. It almost never happens anymore because we're into load management, and I get it. But if ever there was a time where you were going to play a goaltender on back-to-back nights, it was Kevin Lankinen yesterday. Given the way he played in Boston,
but
right?
Rick was asked about that, though, and he said, "No, I'm not doing
because
that."
He said I overworked him earlier in the year, and that's why his level dropped. So that was not the spot based on what Rick had said and what Rick had felt. A little bit of guilt of overplaying him, but you take those elements out of the equation, and getting Lankinen back in the cage as soon as possible is probably your best route to victory, and so I think for sure in Buffalo, and you hope Demko's ready in Detroit, because as Jeff said early in the week, it's not 4 and 6, guys, it's 4 and 5.5.
Yeah,
with the man.
Well, that's it. Yeah, that's true. The only other thing I would say is, if you sit back and you look, what are you trying to accomplish out of this road trip? And was it to go 500?
Yes, I think you need 3 more points on this trip.
Right. So
3 more points on this trip gets you 7 of 12, and I think that's a successful trip.
Trip.
And Blake said 8 at the beginning of the trip, and I hear his mouth, because it's not exactly a murderer's row of teams. But I think anytime you can go over 500 on a road trip in the NHL, that's successful. So if you can get 3 more points, so a win and an overtime or shootout loss, maybe you get a break and you get a win there. But you get 3 more points on this trip, I think you feel good about yourself. But even then, you still have to deal with the Hronek, I mean, that's
that's what I mean. That's what I mean more than anything.
Stuff,
you look at
the other thing I was thinking about, guys, though, watching last night's game go down and watching now the Hronek injury. What's JT Miller thinking watching all this?
Right. Yeah.
And we don't know what the issues are, so we can't claim to think how crazy it is that he would come back earlier rather than later, without knowing the severity of it. We just don't know. But this can't be easy on him to watch his team faltering and losing a key player in the process.
Yeah, and you know, I mean, even if he wasn't playing that well, he was still in the lineup, and
Yeah.
I you know, to me, damaged JT Miller is still better than the alternatives, which is like Niels Oman. You know, like that's the standard he's set for himself, and he's still able to perform to a degree. Yeah, and even if he wasn't playing well enough, and if that was, something he was struggling with, he'll be watching this and being like, oh man.
Yeah. A week from tomorrow, they're back home against Columbus. Yeah. You think you see him there? That's what God tell you. We won't hold you to it.
You think so?
A week from tomorrow?
I don't know. I don't even know what to say.
Yeah.
Don't mean to put you on the spot.
Yeah, no worries.
Came down to the studio for us. Anyway.
I don't know. I mean, you hear all the noise. I just don't think anybody other than JT and the team really knows.
Yeah, and you had a piece earlier in the week. It's unclear who the leave was at the behest of, right? Whether it was JT, whether it was the team, whether it was in combination.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I said initially, right off the bat, because there were sort of a lot of questions that I was trying to figure out, but nobody was really saying that, and it's still. I mean, Patrick Allvin talked a bit about it, but it's I think you're also parsing a guy that's it's sometimes not always on point with his English, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great seeing you. Thanks for the time.
Great to be here.
Mm-hmm. Are you avoiding me?
Avoiding you?
Yeah. The one day I'm off? Come on. Thank you.
You look pretty good in that chair. Pretty good fit.
It's comfortable. I like this.